Hello again, this is a video on the projects and the concept units in the Summit PLP. And if you haven't already watched the video PLP 101, that might be a little bit more helpful because I kind of go into more what all this stuff is in general. So we're just going to hop into projects. So projects are these top lines, and when you're in the year view, they're along the top. And projects are what you're working on in your classrooms. When you go to math class, you're working on your math projects. When you go to English, you're working on your English projects. So I'm going to actually use the English project as an example, going outside my realm of math and science. Okay, so this would be a completed, this right here when you're looking at it, this is a completed project, and I'm just going to use this to kind of go over all the different areas. So when a project has been completed, you can view the scores up at the top, but before it's completed, it doesn't have this. Actually, let me see if I can go find one that isn't actually completed. So here, this textual one is not completed yet. So it looks like this when it's not completed. And you can see over here on the right just has the general project info. And this is the essential question, enduring understanding. That's kind of like, what is the project going to be about? What are we learning about? Cognitive skills. These are actually the things that the student will be assessed on at the end of this project. And each one of these is a different cognitive skill, and they're graded on a rubric. And you can actually click view rubric and see the rubric and what each score for that rubric would represent. The score that your student's trying to get is actually different depending on each grade level. The rubric is from, I think, a 1 to 9, depending on where you're at and what grade level. And it also has a list of focus areas that kind of tie into the project content. So over here on the left, each project has a final product that they're turning in, or it might have multiple final products. And essentially, this is where much of the classroom instruction is happening, the group work, and it's what you'd normally see happening in any classroom, but the students are a lot of times kind of balancing like direct instruction from the teacher and working together, and they're all working towards making a final product, which in this case is they're going to make a portfolio. They're having a Socratic seminar, and they're going to do a presentation. And these are the last things that are turned in. To get to these last final projects, we turn in checkpoints. Checkpoints aren't assigned necessarily every day. They might be assigned one a week, one every other day, something like that. But they are essentially, assignments that they are going to turn in. So here we have 5 checkpoints, and it looks like we have completed these 2 first checkpoints, and this 3rd checkpoint actually has been completed, and I can see that because over here it says feedback requested. So as a student, if I had turned this in, I would know that my teacher gave me feedback on these 2 because they're green. I've actually turned this one in because I've requested feedback. These can either be green for keep going, yellow for what does it say? It says I don't know, I think check feedback it says, and then red is stop and revise. Under each checkpoint you can see resources. So if you hit the view all under the checkpoints that do have resources, you can actually check out. These may have been articles, videos, other activities that may have taken place before the checkpoint was turned in. A lot of times everything in here is completed in the classroom, and then to sum everything up, a final checkpoint is turned in. That might be just a paragraph. In math, a lot of times it's kind of like an exit ticket, but these are what's turned in and checked by us as teachers to give them feedback. And we continue going through these. A lot of times on your student end, you won't actually see all of them assigned. So personally, I try and only assign checkpoints as they come along so students aren't overwhelmed. So in my class, you might only see this first checkpoint, this second checkpoint, this third checkpoint because you had turned it in and you just haven't received feedback yet, and maybe this 4th one. I probably wouldn't have this 5th one assigned yet, but it kind of just depends on the projects. And then you can see if you scroll down, there's also the final projects, and this is where you would actually turn them in. And then sometimes there's additional resources at the bottom. You can actually click into these and see the assignment. So when you click onto the actual text of these checkpoints, it will open the checkpoints. This could be things complete in Google Docs. It might be something that takes you to a link. It kind of depends on what we have them turn in, but a lot of times it's a Google Doc and that the student has been working on, and you can see the actual checkpoint. This is the actual checkpoint document. And then on the right, you can actually see those additional resources. These resources over here on the right are the same exact resources that are right here. And then you can actually open up each of these individual resources. All of these a lot of times take you to, this is just a placeholder, different links and places. But again, these are resources here. If I open up the actual checkpoint by clicking on the checkpoint, it gives me the checkpoint in my main view and those additional resources on the right. This is also where you request feedback. So once you've completed a checkpoint, down here is the request feedback button. You can submit this checkpoint for feedback, or you can actually ask for help. And if you ask for help, it kind of alerts us on the teacher end. Over here, you can also see cognitive skills if you if those have been assigned specifically to that checkpoint. Let me go to the completed one so we can go see what that would look like once it's been completed. So this one was completed. So you could see this has different projects, a personal narrative. This is probably just going to be a filler. Yeah, filler. And this one has less checkpoints, as you can see. Looks different, but it's basically arranged the same way. Different cognitive skills. But if you hit, once your project has been scored finally, you can hit view scores, and it essentially just opens up the final document. And over here on the right, you can click cognitive skills, and it will show you the scores that you received in each one. And you can actually click the arrows, and it'll show you the breakdown of the rubric as well, so you can see what that actually means. You can also get those at any time. If this isn't up here, you can see your final scores just by clicking on the final project, and then again going to the same place, cognitive skills, and they're right there. The only other difference is math actually has what we would call concept units. Concept units are they're really in line with the projects. So depending on your math class, you might have a different balance of concept units and projects. Concept units are they're not turning in a final project, they're doing a final assessment. And so let me try and open these up and see. This one was a project. You can see it says this is final. No, actually, math concepts. This is this one is a concept unit. So you can tell the difference. It is kind of confusing to tell the difference actually, but usually you can tell the difference because the final product will be a performance task. It's just a paper test. And on the right-hand side, instead of saying cognitive skills, it'll say math concepts. And the math concepts has a different rubric, and I'll go more into that in the grading one. But the math concept unit rubric is actually different than the project one. But this has the same type of thing. You have checkpoints, and you're doing, different activities and things, working until you get to the end of the unit, and you're doing a final performance task. Really, the concept units are more like what you would see. It's kind of like the more old school teaching activities with a test at the end. So it's just instead of a project, you have a test at the end. But essentially, and there's a different rubric, but essentially they're happening at the same time. And the reason math has concept units and the other subjects don't is, honestly, they just found when this platform was being created, they found subjects like science. That's really easy to learn things through projects. That's what science is. Science is making hypotheses, testing them. That's very easy to learn through testing and doing projects and things like that. Math just tends to be a lot more difficult to learn completely new math concepts by exploring things through projects. So it needs a little bit more direct instruction, and so that's what the concept units are. But hopefully that is helpful on the project and concept unit end. I didn't really go into any of these projects or these projects, but you can see that um, they're all the same thing, just different subjects. I think finally maybe I'll go show you a quick. This is a project. It was red because it doesn't look like the final performance task has been turned in. I'm trying to find one that maybe they didn't. This is the greatest. They're red because they haven't been turned in, but a lot of times, so these are all late. It looks like it says that it's red because it says it was due, so they just haven't been turned in. A lot of times, if your student's project is red, the projects actually are either going to be like this blue color, like they're working on them, green because they're done, or red. A lot of times, if they're red, it's because it's late. But you could, I would also always check on your children's projects. Maybe this one. This demo has them all green, but sometimes, a lot of times I use yellows, and it's not bad. It's just I'm trying to tell the kids that I left them feedback. So if we can actually leave comments in their checkpoints as they turn them in their Google Docs, I can leave a comment on that Google Doc, and I'll usually send it yellow because otherwise they don't know I left a comment. So yeah, that's it.